Welcome to the BEASTwriter family, where social media engagement is encouraged. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we're going to be discussing and breaking down the NFC West. This is the time for the NFC West. You 49er fans, Seahawks fans, Rams fans, and Cardinals fans, you guys have been waiting for this. So we're going to kick it off with the Seattle Seahawks, breaking down their 2021 NFL Draft, including my letter grade for the team. So before we go ahead and do that, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for subscribing to my channel. Just be sure to turn on and flip on the bell notifications so you get notified when I go live or when I upload content. All right. So we're not going to waste anyone's time. We're just going to dive right into it and talk about the Seattle Seahawks as it pertains to their 2021 NFL Draft class. Now, if you remember, I'm going to break down each selection brick by brick. And if you're new to following my channel, I like to break down all my podcasts into three simplest forms and what I like to call parameters. And those parameters are: who are the players involved? The second parameter is why the move was made or potentially could be made. And the last but not least parameter is the instant gratification versus long-term gains. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about their first round pick, number 23 overall, that was sent to the New York Jets. Because if you remember, the Seattle Seahawks struck a deal for a guy by the name of strong safety Jamal Adams, first team All-Pro strong safety Jamal Adams. So you guys know what you guys are getting with Jamal Adams. It was a smart play by GM John Schneider and Pete Carroll to go ahead and pull the trigger because, again, this safety class is weak sauce. And with Jamal Adams at the helm, we saw the damage that he brought to the table. I mean, he really brought back that Legion of Boom single-handedly. And what Jamal Adams can bring in future years to the team is a perennial All-Pro player year in and year out, just like what the Pittsburgh Steelers got when they traded for first round pick out of the Miami Dolphins, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Now he plays free safety, but you guys kind of see the similarities and the comparables when dissecting their game in terms of value on the back end of their respective defenses. So again, a nice play by the New York Jets to go ahead and make a trade because obviously they yield draft capital in return, but a better deal. And I feel like they got the better in the stick with the Seattle Seahawks because at the end of the day, they pick up a first-team All-Pro player in strong safety Jamal Adams. So again, they didn't hold a first-round pick because of Jamal Adams. And not only did they give up this first-round pick, they also didn't have a third-round pick. That's right. They gave up the first and the third along with other draft capital. But as it pertains to the 2021 NFL Draft, they didn't have a first or third-round pick because, again, strong safety Jamal Adams came at a cost. And price is what you pay, value is what you get. Learned that from the great Warren Buffett. I already say that in my earlier podcast. You guys know what I talk about here. It's all about value. And the Jets got good value here because obviously they just got two draft picks in return. But more importantly, the Seattle Seahawks got the player that they coveted most and thought yielding a first and a third round draft pick for a depleted strong safety class or safety class in general was well worth the risk. And it was. It was. And so here we are sitting here. Well, the Jets, they held the number 23 overall pick. They moved up all the way to number 14 to get Elijah Vera Tucker. Now, that's a player that the Seattle Seahawks could use in the interior guard position because they need help up front. Russell Wilson alluded to this all offseason. He's been rattled ever since a lot of these offensive linemen went off board. Obviously, Mike Iupati just retired, so they don't have very many stable offensive linemen up front. However, with that being said, anytime you get Jamal Adams, it's kind of a risk versus reward there. I'd rather take Jamal Adams over a guy like Elijah Vera Tucker, although he has Pro Bowl potential. All right, and then you double down here as we're talking on this ticker. I think it's up there. Yeah, third round pick, number 86 overall. What did they do with that selection? They selected offensive guard Wyatt Davis out of the Ohio State University. He was an absolute steal at number 86. But again, anytime you get a guy like Jamal Adams, it's well worth the risk. All right, so again, it's a win for the Seahawks. And if I was to put a letter grade on giving a first and third round pick in exchange for a guy like Jamal Adams, an All-Pro player, I'm going to have to give the Seattle Seahawks an A. Now, sandwiching between those two selections was a second round pick. And this is where it kind of gets dicey for me. I mean, they went after, and I know in today's pass happy NFL, you need a trio of wide receivers, right? Well, you have DK Metcalf already, who's a perennial All-Pro player year in and year out. You also have Tyler Lockett at the helm, right? Well, then you go out and get the third wide receiver, right? Your trio of wide receiver sets and trip formations. You can do a 3x1 set. You can do 2x2, whatever the case may be, all right? So you get your player in D'Wayne Eskridge. Now, D'Wayne Eskridge is not going to be a split end. He's not going to play the X receiver position. He's more of a flanker position, so he'll be playing the Z position. So a little bit off the line of scrimmage to get a free release off the line of scrimmage because his size. He's not the tallest, he's not the strongest, but he is the fastest. The guy has speed for days, and that is why I believe that the Seattle Seahawks went ahead and made play for D'Wayne Eskridge in the second round, number 56 overall. Now, the question remains to be seen. Why did they go wide receiver when they had a bigger need at center, or they could have went outside linebacker with KJ Wright no longer with the team, right? And two players that I really like come out of Oklahoma, Creed Humphrey and Ronnie Perkins. Why not go after one of those two players? Big time school, feel a need, BPA, best player available. Those two are better value, in my opinion, than Eskridge. And when you put that all into account, and then you look at what they have on their current depth chart in Ethan Posick. Well, who's Ethan Posick? He's not very good. Creed Humphrey's a definite upgrade over Ethan Posick. And then, like I said, KJ Wright's no longer with the team, and Bruce Irvin was hurt last year. He's no longer with the team. Why not slide in Ronnie Perkins out of Oklahoma and just have him pay his dues as the 4-3 outside linebacker? I like Ronnie Perkins. Now, the question remains to be seen, is he a liability in pass coverage? I would say he doesn't have the oily hips. So in a sense, he's a little stiff in the hips. Yes. But that's not to say they can't coach him up, because again, in Seattle, they have the top 5 coaching staffs in the NFL. I believe they could get it done. So Ronnie Perkins would have been a nice find there. But I can see why the Seattle Seahawks went ahead and again, went after D'Wayne Eskridge. They're looking at their vertical board, horizontal board, and value board and saying, you know what Eskridge provides, aside from being a flanker wide receiver in our trip wide receiver sets, is he adds return value in special teams, right? So he can be a special return man and really take the load off Tyler Lockett, right? So Tyler Lockett, as you know, is a very versatile offensive player who has a lateral agility to be a special teams ace as a return man. What people don't realize is he takes a beating. You know, if he's a punt returner or kick returner, he's going to take a beating. And so if you can kind of have an insurance policy in place and take the load off of Tyler Lockett, why not go after and use a guy of a similar skill set in D'Wayne Eskridge, who has 4.3 speed? Makes perfect sense. So peeling back another layer of the onion to really get to the core, as I always like to say, and they just lost wide receiver David Moore to the Carolina Panthers. So David Moore goes to the Carolina Panthers, teams up with Robbie Anderson, and DJ Moore in Carolina, along with Terrace Marshall, who's drafted number 59 overall. You can see that in an earlier podcast on my Panthers podcast. I can't believe I remember this stuff. But yes, getting back to this podcast, that is why they had a need for a wide receiver 3, because David Moore's off to Carolina. So you can see where the positional need meets best player available. I would have rather them had Perkins or Humphrey out of Oklahoma. They opted to go with Eskridge, which is not a bad play. It's not a bad play. So if I was to grade a B, if I was to put a grade on this, I would give them a B, simply because I like Creed Humphrey or Ronnie Perkins a little bit more. I thought they were no-brainer choices. However, they opted for another wide receiver threat for Russell Wilson, and that's why I like D'Wayne Eskridge. I just thought there were better, higher valued players on the board at number 56. So that's why I give them, for this draft selection, a grade of a B. All right. Now let's move on. So we have here another player. And this player right here is going to be Tre Brown. He's a 4th round pick. Let me just pull it up here. He was a 4th round pick, drafted number 137 overall, and his name is Tre Brown. Now, the team traded down to a few spots, 8 spots specifically, from 129 to 137 to go ahead and get a guy like cornerback Tre Brown. If you remember, all these cornerbacks were falling off the board in the tail end of the 3rd round. So they were getting a player who basically was sloppy thirds, I guess you can say. No offense to Tre Brown. I'm not taking a stab at Tre Brown. I'm just calling it how I see it. When you look at the draft capital and the draft position, how things were playing out, just make sure it's on the board. Here we go. Tre Brown was not one of the top ranked cornerbacks coming into this draft class. Just saying it, right? However, by moving down from 129 to 137, they gained a 6th round pick, number 217, which they would later trade up to get another player in Stone Forsyth, offensive tackle in the 6th round at number 208. But getting back to this specific draft pick, Tre Brown has some nice intangibles. He has some nice critical factors in what the Seattle Seahawks like to do in their cover 3 scheme. So what I see in Tre Brown's game is, hey, look, you lose Shaquille Griffin to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You pick up Ahkello Witherspoon in free agency on a 1-year deal, which I thought was one of the best deals in free agency. Got him on the cheap, and this guy's going to ball out of control in Seattle. Mark my words, was graded really high when he got the opportunity and chance. Now, when he got opportunity and chance, I can't even speak, got the opportunity to shine. However, and just let me let's rewind a little bit. If you want to see that podcast on Ahkello Witherspoon, why I think he's going to shine, I'll include that in the description box below. So again, I like tying earlier podcasts into this one so you guys can kind of formulate my analysis and see what I had to say in real time. And then in hindsight, you can cross-check the references and be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Or dang, this guy was spot on. So again, I'm not afraid to put analysis out there. That's why I have Ahkello Witherspoon. I'll drop that podcast below because a lot of people think Ahkello Witherspoon's damaged goods. Ahkello Witherspoon's going to be a Pro Bowl talent up in Seattle because the Pro Bowl potential is there. We all see it. Same thing with Tre Brown, right? Cover 3 scheme. He's good in coverage. Now, he doesn't have the fundamentals. You would like to see him stay more square at the line of scrimmage. He does have some fight and run support. So you see the critical factors that Pete Carroll likes to have in his boundary cornerbacks. So with Shaquille Griffin off to the Jacksonville Jaguars, GM Trent Baalke and so forth, Urban Meyer, you get the picture. And then you don't have Quentin Dunbar no longer there, right? So what does that leave Trey Flowers as a starting boundary cornerback? No, you want to give another Trey. Let's go with Tre Brown and give competition so the Treys can battle out as camp competition rolls around. So that's why I think it was a sound play by the Seattle Seahawks and GM John Schneider to go ahead and make this play for their boundary cornerback. All right, so if I was to put a grade on this, again, I like the critical factors. There's not much out there left. I picked number 137 anyways, even at 129, which is why they traded back and gained a 6th-round pick in return. So if I was to put a letter grade on this, I'd give him an A. I'd give him an A. And then again, I talked about offensive tackle Stone Forsyth, who they drafted in the 6th round, number 208. It's an grade because, I mean, like I said in my earlier live streams, this 2021 NFL draft class is not as deep as one would think. All right, so if I was to give a final grade on this, again, let me just go down the list here. I mean, Jamal Adams, giving him up 1st and 3rd. That's an A. D'Wayne Eskridge, I mean, I would rather them have Creed Humphrey or Ronnie Perkins. I give him B over D'Wayne Eskridge. I like the player. He hate the reach. And then in the 4th round at 137, I like the player and the critical factors he brings to the table in Tre Brown. So I'm going to give them an A grade for that. So an overall grade for the Seattle Seahawks in this draft class, I would have to give them a solid B. All right. Well, that's the ending of this podcast. That's it for this one. If you like my analysis, I can't even talk today. If you like my analysis and insights, be sure to hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. All right, so Seahawks fans, BEASTwriter family, what are your thoughts? Love engaging with you on this YouTube platform. Please leave your comments. And again, welcome to the BEASTwriter family. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. BEASTwriter out.